Did you know the story of Kuru brain disease? Before we start, please like the video, share and subscribe. Thank you. The Kuru brain disease nearly wiped out the Indigenous Fore people of Papua New Guinea during its height in the 1950s and 1960s. Until the 1930s, no one knew the Fore people of Papua New Guinea existed. For years, the Fore have lived separately in one of the world's least explored locations, building a separate civilization with customs unknown even to their fellow islanders. One of these customs was ceremonial cannibalism, which resulted in a widespread sickness known as Kuru. Australian gold explorers were the first foreigners to establish contact with the indigenous people of Papua New Guinea's eastern highlands. The gold explorers were quickly followed by researchers and police officials who were patrolling the region. However, it would take more than 20 years for the Fore's cannibalism, as well as its horrible effects, to be revealed. Cannibalism, according to the Fore, was supposed to be an expression of love and mourning, since they ate the bodies of their deceased loved ones. Regardless of their intentions, most other groups of people across the world regarded this practice with horror. And the fallout from this practice was just as horrible. The eating of dead persons by the Fore directly contributed to the spread of Kuru. Kuru is a deadly brain illness that leads patients to lose control of their emotions, limbs, and physical functions. It is also known as the laughing death. Surprisingly, many sufferers have uncontrolled fits of laughing and die less than a year after initially exhibiting signs of the condition. Kuru was annihilating 2% of the tribe every year at its height in the 1950s. While both the Fore and outside experts recognized that there was a serious problem, they had no clue what was driving the illness of laughing deaths at first. But, before long, everyone discovered the horrifying truth. Papua New Guinea is famous for its hundreds of indigenous communities that have been undisturbed by foreign civilizations for thousands of years. These people evolved a separate set of traditions and rituals in their dwellings, buried within the lush woods that coat the country's highland. The region was initially explored by Portuguese and Spanish explorers in the 16th century. Even then, they only communicated with people who lived on the coastlines. As a result, many indigenous communities were not touched by individuals from other nations until far into the 20th century. Cannibalism was practiced by some of the more distant societies, such as the Fore. Despite the fact that each tribe approached the ceremony differently, the Fore were adamant that it was a holy funeral rite. As a result, if someone died, their corpse was cooked and eaten by their loved ones. The Fore people believed that by performing this ceremony, they would be able to control the spirit of the departed and respect the deceased. According to one medical researcher, the Fore mentality was as follows: if the body was buried, it was eaten by worms. If it was placed on a platform, it was eaten by maggots. The Fore felt it was far better that the body was eaten by those who loved the deceased than by worms and insects. Women were commonly tasked with devouring the person's body since their bodies were regarded to be capable of containing a dangerous spirit. Except for the gallbladder, they would consume practically every bit of flesh and organ in the body. This, crucially, includes the brain. Women, on the other hand, would occasionally feed snacks from the corpses to their young children. As a result, Kuru mostly impacted women and children. Despite the fact that missionaries and colonial officials denounced cannibalism among the tribes that practiced it, the tradition remained common among Fore communities. It is uncertain when the Kuru sickness first occurred among them. However, other scholars believe it initially emerged in the 1910s or 1920s, barely a few decades before they established contact with outsiders. This is confirmed by the absence of mentions of the sickness in Fore history, as well as the fact that the Fore themselves realized that the disease was reducing their number. If they'd lived with Kuru for generations, there would be no Fore left. They numbered up to 11,000 individuals when they were discovered by Australian and American researchers in the 1950s. The issue that both the Fore and the researchers faced was that no one understood what Kuru was or how it spread. They were aware, however, that the laughing death had become an epidemic, killing up to 200 individuals every year. While academics suspected pollutants or genetics were to blame, the Fore people suspected males of conducting sorcery. However, it wasn't until the early 1960s that scientists were able to figure it out. In 1961, Kuru research has been prioritized by scientists. They investigated suspected illness causes by traveling from village to village in the Fore community. After eliminating out pollutants, scientists determined the sickness wasn't genetic either, because it afflicted women and children in the same social groupings, rather than genetic groups. Though some experts were doubtful, a group from the National Institutes of Health in the United States decided to put their theory to the test. Infected human brain samples were injected into chimps by the researchers. When the chimps started showing indications of Kuru months later, the hypothesis was confirmed. Despite the fact that the primary question of what caused Kuru had been solved, there were still certain gaps to be filled. After all, the Fore were far from the only people in history to practice cannibalism, but they were the first to be known to contract such a sickness. So, what caused this peculiar disease among the Fore, but not the other tribes? Since the Fore had mostly abandoned cannibalism by the 1960s, especially after learning of the fatal repercussions, it was difficult to pinpoint the actual source of the Laughing Death pandemic. Many scientists believe it began when one Fore person had Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, a neurological illness comparable to Kuru. Both diseases are caused by prions, which are aberrant proteins that fold in an odd way, producing lesions in the brain and inflicting severe damage to the nervous system, and, eventually, the rest of the body. Both illnesses are also deadly, with many people dying roughly a year after symptoms first appear. Researchers believe that the Fore member who got Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease died before the 1910s or 1920s. When the body of this individual was eaten, the prions in their brain tissues spread to people who ate them, who then passed the sickness on to those who ate them. Without the advantage of modern treatment, the Fore were left in the dark for decades about what was killing hundreds of them. Following the researchers' discovery, the number of Kuru cases among the Fore steadily decreased. However, the instances did not vanish overnight, as the illness can take decades to manifest its symptoms. Kuru's final victim died in 2009. In 2012, the Fore People's Plague was officially declared ended. Today, the Fore number roughly 20,000 individuals, which is nearly double the number of people who lived during the peak of the Kuru brain disease. The Fore are overjoyed with their population expansion, especially since the number of women and children has stabilized. The researchers who worked on the chimp experiment were awarded the Nobel Prize for their discoveries. The scientific information led to additional advances in comprehending illnesses such as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or mad cow disease, and neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's. Recently, researchers discovered that, while the Fore's previous practice of funeral cannibalism resulted in misery, it also resulted in a unique adaptation. Experts revealed in 2015 that certain Fore have produced a gene that protects them from Kuru as well as other prion illnesses such as mad cow. It may even prevent them from certain types of dementia. While they are unlikely to return to their forefathers' heinous rituals, today's Fore can be grateful that an unintentional outcome of a long-held ritual now gives a good attribute that may hold the secret to beating some of humanity's most crippling brain disorders.